1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Man,
Yeah.
oh man, we're back for another episode of Is It Worth It? I'm super excited and of course joined today by Dustin. We're going to be diving deep into Nightmare on Elm Street, the classic slasher film from 1984. 84, let's see, let's do the math. How old were you in 84?
14. I was
14.
14. There was no PG-13 if I'm not mistaken. And
Oh
this was
man.
a rated R movie that you needed an adult to go see with. Yeah, this is a good one, man. I've got some fond memories of this film. I think, it's gonna be a fun one to dive into.
For sure. Did you see it in theaters?
I did. I did. And which was critical
Mm.
because for a lot of people who don't realize this was released by New Line Cinema.
Hmm.
And New Line Cinema was broken and was about to go bankrupt. And this movie saved it. It was such a huge hit at the box office that it literally saved New Line Cinema. And they affectionately referred to it from that point on as the house that Freddy built.
Mm.
Because it literally banked in money. And then every sequel, not every sequel, but the first couple sequels continued to do really well at the box office. So yeah, a lot was riding on it. For anybody not familiar with the story, they had to change it up a little bit. They had to tweak it a little bit because Wes Craven's original idea for this thing, Freddy wasn't just a child killer, he was a child molester. And they were like, do we want to do a film where we're kind of promoting a child molester? And so the studio was like, so he became a child killer as opposed to a child molester. I don't know in which world that's better, but I mean, that legit was a thing that they were worried about, and so they had to make a couple of tweaks to the storyline.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. Well, we're going to dive into the trailer and synopsis, of course. So let's start off with the trailer.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
You just see cuts happen.
What did that, Lieutenant?
I don't know.
What the coroner got to say? He's in the jar and puking since he saw it.
They're gonna kill me for sure.
Did you do it?
There was somebody else there.
He was locked in a room with a girl who went in alive and came out in a rubber bag.
No one knows where it came from or who it will visit next.
Nancy? There's something wrong with you. You're imagining things.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Do you believe in the boogeyman?
No.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
She's the only one who can stop it. If she fails,
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
no one will survive. From Wes Craven, director of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, a new masterpiece in fantasy terror, Nightmare on Elm Street.
I know that brought back some nostalgia vibes,
Okay,
right?
okay. It is very nostalgic, and like every trailer back in the day had that cinema voice of now. What's interesting about this trailer, though, watching it again, and that's the first time I've seen the trailer in like a really long time. They don't really tell you, other than her saying, whatever you do, don't fall asleep. They don't really tell you that he comes to them in dreams, right? They make it seem like he's just this killer that's out and about. People, somebody's out there. You didn't really catch that in the trailer that he visits in the dreams. It's like,
But
yeah,
isn't that the thing we always talk about with nowadays trailers where it's like they're not giving too much away in the trailers
exactly.
where compared to nowadays where they're feeding you the entire story instead of you
Yes.
actually going to go watch the film. But
Agreed.
yeah, I mean, upon first watch of this thing, I watched it for anticipation for Halloween and I tried to watch as many movies as possible throughout the year. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, just I think majorly for the nostalgia factor though, because like you did have I mean, let's be honest about it. It felt like a lot of the young actors were new actors, which I mean, we saw Johnny Depp, we saw a couple of others, where they did feel like they were kind of reading off of the page, and it felt like that the entire time. But knowing that it was an 80s horror slasher, and I mean, really, you're watching this film for Freddy and for his charisma. I was definitely appreciating the old practical effects and how they were able to do this in that current day time. But like at the same time, I'm really just watching it to see Freddy. And I was super surprised though, because I was not expecting them to give the backstory of how he died in the
Yeah.
first one. I mean, of course, going into making this film in pre-production and development, I'm sure they weren't anticipating a franchise. They were hoping, maybe we can get one or two more out of this thing. But I mean, to turn it into what it is now, I think there's like 7 or 8 films or something like that that include Freddy Krueger. So I was very surprised that they had that developed at the very beginning, where the parents did come and kill Freddy Krueger. So I was very surprised by that. But everything else, though, I mean, it was just fun. I think it was a fun movie throughout the entire process.
Well, for me, the entire success of the movie rides on literally Nancy and Freddie.
Yeah.
If those two don't work, then the film doesn't work. Because I agree with you, there were a lot of young actors, Johnny Depp included, that just weren't doing it for me.
Yeah.
But I thought that Heather Langenkamp's Nancy was solid. I thought she did a really good job. And of course, Freddie, I mean, Robert Englund is just groundbreaking. I mean, that was a terrifying performance of this character. And I think that's why the film works so well. And they went extensive. I mean, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there were a lot of big names now, but not necessarily huge names then. The people that they were looking at for Nancy, including like Jennifer Grey, Demi Moore, Courtney Cox, and I'm like, what would have it been like with one of those like in there instead of Heather? But I really do think Heather nailed it. I think it was the innocence of, and you're right. I was really impressed with this film. It had a $1.8 million budget. That was a lot of money. But here's the kicker. The special effects, like the gory blood, the burnt face, they only had $57,000 out of that 1.8 million budgeted for special effects. So what they were able to accomplish with $57,000 back in that day is mind-boggling to me, because it did look very realistic. It was terrifying. His face and the claws and that, it was incredible. And we can't do anything for $57,000 now. You can't even get a star in your film for $57,000 now. And kudos to the people that took that on, right? Because I'm betting they had to shop it around to a lot of special effects people that said 57,000. Okay, I mean, I can't imagine. Because a lot of this film for me, it was what worked, and what was really scary is what you didn't see. And there was a lot of that. There was a lot of building up to, and then you don't really see it. And then we get the reveal, right, with Freddy, and we see the terrorizing and stuff. For me, I've always been, that's my kind of horror film, is the anticipation of what you don't see that's terrifying. And I'll be honest, I was 14, but I was scared to go to bed after this thing. I'm like, maybe I stay up all night because I ain't having Freddy come to me. I was scared.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, everybody sleeps. If you don't sleep, you'll literally go insane. But when you sleep, you will get terrorized. So that was the whole thing, especially for the youth. But I mean, you brought up the budget, the $1.8 million on its opening weekend. It about made 1.3, which in today's climate, that would be a freaking bomb. But overall, worldwide, it grossed about $26 million worldwide. And it's crazy the difference in the economics when it comes to the numbers from 84 to 2025. But I think what this film brought to the table that was very popular around that current day time rather than what it is now is the time and the length of the actual film. This film is only 91 minutes, y'all. Like, that
Yeah.
is crazy. You can tell a decent story that is entertaining that doesn't have to be 2.5, 3 hours long. I mean, I complain about it all the time. The IMDb Pro synopsis, of course, we've been talking about it a little bit. Teenager Nancy Thompson must uncover the dark truth concealed by her parents after she and her friends become targets of a spirit of a serial killer with bladed gloves in their dreams, in which they die if he kills them in real life. So, I mean, even that synopsis, it sounds a little confusing. It sounds like a little bit jumbled back and forth. But I think, you know what, like you were talking about what they were able to do, I think it was groundbreaking. And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it started the momentum for the slasher genre, but it was definitely one of the pillars of the slasher genre that currently, keeps getting implemented in today. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I didn't necessarily think it was the worst. I didn't think it was the greatest, but I thought it was fun. I thought that's what horror movies should be and films in general should be. Sometimes I feel like we get in a rut where we're too critical on films with our, mind and academy aesthetic of trying to win Oscars and to win awards and things like that. But I mean, the filmmaking is supposed to entertain and tell a story, and that is the bottom line. But yeah, like I said, I was really surprised because there's sometimes when I go back and watch these classic films where I am scared for the anticipation of it being bad because maybe not aged well. But I think this one aged well. The most memorable scene by far is either Johnny Depp getting sucked into the bed. That one's crazy, and then the blood starts getting split up. But the really crazy one is the bathtub scene, man. Like that bathtub scene, I feel like is wild. Like, so inappropriate, so crazy. And I mean, I don't know the age of which the main actress was during the filming of this, but I mean, kind of seeing like the full frontal from the side view, like in the water while she's being sucked down, I was just like, wow. Like, but I think that type of filmmaking, and I was listening to a podcast about Halloween as well, like the serial killers of this current day time of these type of horror films, they really attack and try to manipulate the sexual active teenagers first, but then after like they build up the momentum and the hunger, I guess, for the chase and the kill, that's when they get to the more purist main protagonist of the films, which I feel like is a very interesting like theory and retrospective thinking when it comes to these films because like listen to interviews with a lot of these different filmmakers and they talk about how they don't anticipate doing that, but then it always like ends up being that kind of storyline. Have you noticed like trends like
Well,
that in
so
movies?
especially with Friday the 13th. Friday
Yeah.
the 13th was like as soon as they started having sex, they were going to die.
Yeah,
You
like
knew it. It was like a precursor. Uh-oh, they're kissing. Uh-oh, they're taking off clothes. Here comes Jason. You knew. It was like so yeah, I don't think it was maybe it wasn't intentional, maybe it was, but it was definitely a precursor of you knew what was about to happen as soon as they started getting intimate. And you're right, it wasn't like necessarily the start. It was more of a resurgence of the slasher films because really slasher films, the term comes from Psycho with
mm,
the
yeah.
and there was a few films after that that tried to capitalize off. And then it kind of faded off a little bit. And the Friday the 13th and the Freddy and Nightmare on Elm Streets, they brought that back too. And they ran hard in the 80s. What I like and sometimes I miss about 80s films. They took chances. They take chances. Like you said, sometimes the stuff they're showing you're like, should they be showing that? Like, is this a thing? And I feel like we're so politically correct now in what we try to put on the screen that we're damaging storytelling. I miss that a lot about the 80s. I feel like they were willing to take more risk and more, it just yeah, I think it's important that we get back to that, especially with horror films. Take those risks. Put stuff out there that might shock people and go, oh my gosh. Like, I think that's why Weapons was so successful. That was some shocking stuff. And it was like they took a chance. When those kids are tearing that woman apart limb to limb, that is disturbing, but it works. And so I credit, films like Nightmare on Elm Street for that. Overall, this is a classic. Is it a perfect film? Is it a perfect horror film? No. Is it fun? Does it scare the crap out of you? Yes. And I think that's what makes it work best is I like a good horror film where I do get a jump, where I do get a little scared, but that I'm also laughing. Like that was so over the top. I have to laugh at this. That was just crazy. For me, Nightmare on Elm Street, the OG, the original, totally worth it. I think everybody should check it out if you're a horror fan.
Yeah, completely agree. I think the charisma is really what brings people in. I think that's why I like It and Pennywise so much, specifically
Yeah.
Tim Curry's It, because I mean, just what he was able to do with the character and the charisma. Like, hey, I'm gonna kill you, but I'm also gonna make you make the audience laugh. I think that's what is very different between that and the plain stale like Jason or Michael Myers or what I like to do at the very end of the episodes is like give a letterbox rating 1 through 5. I gave this one a 3, nice middle of the road. The 3s are always where I enjoy it, but there's always a decent amount of room for improvement. Like I said, the acting was a little rough. There was a lot of newcomers. The script was a little rough, but I mean, what worked really well. So where it kind of overshadows, Johnny Depp, newcomer Johnny Depp's really bad acting, or all of these little tiny different things. But yeah, a 3 out of 5 for me.
3 out of 5. I would agree. I'd give it a 3.5 only because, like I said, I thought it took some risks.
Yeah.
And I applaud any film that's willing to take risks. And to Johnny Depp's credit, it was a really bad performance, but it's not the best written script. The
Exactly.
dialogue that Johnny had to work with as a new actor wasn't top notch.
It wasn't. Yeah.
It wasn't the Tim Burton collaborations that he had further down the line.
No. Yeah.
So to his credit, it's your first on-screen performance. It's your first, not just your first like film, but your first on-screen period. And so, I cut him a little slack. It was bad, but I cut him a little slack. So, you can only work with the dialogue that you have, and his character's dialogue just, But yeah, so for me, 3.5 out of 5, just because, for the risk. I love the risk of it all, and good for you, Wes Craven. Good for you.
Most definitely, most definitely. Definitely a pioneer in the genre and continued to make great things like Scream, that whole franchise, and a whole many more. So yeah, kudos to them. But thank you everyone for listening to our review of Nightmare on Elm Street. Be sure to check it out before Halloween or even Halloween night after you watch our film Deadlines re-release on our YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out as well. Like, comment below, all the good things. You can follow us everywhere at ItCaf Podcast, at Crazy Ant Media, at J Logan Austin, and
at Crazy Ant CEO.
That's right, man. That's right. Until next time, we will see you later.